welcome to our first edition of Cowboys Classics. I'm Nick Eatman from DallasCowboys.com, and as our world has been turned upside down and sports has hit the pause button, we felt like this was a perfect time to bring out the classic games. What better way to kick it off than Super Bowl XXVII? And man, what a crew do I have here. Let's start with Brad Sham. We got the voice of the Cowboys over 40 seasons, the play-by-play announcer for this game. I've got Tony Casillas, starting defensive tackle in that deep defensive line. And last, never least, the playmaker, Michael Irvin. Of course, he made some big plays in this game with 2 huge touchdown catches. Guys, I'll just open it up. What's going on? And welcome to Cowboys Classics. Brad, you should always start this, Brad. You are the voice and the man. So I should. No one should speak until after you speak, Brad.
Thank you, Michael. I'll have that payment in your mailbox this afternoon. It'll be just the first installment because I can't afford all of you on the first shot right out of the box. This was such a great day, and when people ask me now I'll be going into my 42nd season of Cowboys football. And when they ask me about my favorite memories, I always say about 3.5 hours before the start of this game, because the scenery was absolutely perfect. At the Rose Bowl, there was still dew on the grass, and the sky was brilliant blue, and the mountains were in the background, and this improbable story that this team had written gotten them to this point, and the scene was so perfect a couple hours before that it almost didn't matter at that moment whether they won the game or not, and then once the game started, it mattered a heck of a lot.
Yeah, and Brad, but you set it up perfectly. It was a beautiful day, and actually it was a beautiful week. Just knowing that Super Bowl XXVII was in Hollywood. The whole makeup of that team was born to play a Super Bowl in Hollywood. And I couldn't help but think about, even when I walked on the field that day, like, wow, there were 100,000 people in the stands. And when you walk into the Rose Bowl, the fans are right on top of you. I thought, wow, this is such an incredible day. I had gone through the 3-13, and personally the 1-15, and just a few short years later, to be right on the cuff about to start this Super Bowl, it was just an incredible, incredible journey.
Well, Mike, we all knew you were Hollywood, and we know that you embraced being in Hollywood, but I think everyone as a whole, it was pretty surreal. I mean, I came from Atlanta where I didn't know what winning was. I was able to join a team and a bunch of players that really in the infancy stage of actually winning, and to be able to embark on something larger than life. And I just remember saying this before the game and in the defensive room, meeting room, we wanted for them to take the ball because we had all this unleash the defensive crack and all this build-up over 2 weeks, and we were ready to go. And you said it best, Brad. I mean, it was 3.5 hours of just waiting, but just the 2 weeks before that, and able to be out and play out, and as Michael said, Hollywood, and let the world know who the Dallas Cowboys were.
All right, well, we're going to get the game kicked off here. It's a long game. When you score a lot of points, you certainly, it drags things out. But it was a fun day, and we're going to let you guys just kind of do what you do. When it's offense, I'm going to let Michael tell us what they're seeing, what he was thinking. Same with Tony on defense. And we're going to let Brad do what he does and make some calls on some of these games and relive the calls that he had in there. So if we can get it fired up, and I think the Bills get the ball. The Bills get the ball to start the game, just like Tony wanted. We kind of can get started there.
Well, I think the main thing to remember, and we've talked about it as we were setting this recording up, is that the main thing is about the turnovers, because this was a really good Buffalo team, and they were able to make some plays like this one to Andre Reed from Jim Kelly. But the turnovers that the defense got was what turned out to be the difference in the game.
Yeah, we knew that they were going to come out fast, and we platooned. We had a lot of depth, and as far as get personnel, but we knew we had to stop this guy right here, Thurman Thomas, and we knew turnovers. That's how we're going to dictate the outcome of this game. I don't think we all thought that we'd get that many turnovers during the game, but it was the way we wanted to start fast.
You know, Nick, as we watch this unfold, and we were kind of talking about it before, you have to try to watch the numbers of the Cowboys' defensive linemen, because the Bills were playing fast. They were playing a lot of no huddle. And you introduced Tony by saying he was part of that deep defensive line, and that's right. And they used about 8 guys in the interior line, and they all played and they all contributed.
That's right. I mean, go ahead, Tony.
No, and to your point, Brad, exactly what we were able to do. And this, you see the push that we get. I mean, there's Russell Maryland. There's me, trying to get part of a garbage sack, but we just had this relentless, and we wore people out. And I think, again, that's why they wanted to get in this hurry-up offense, so we couldn't substitute. But we had so much depth, and Charles Haley off the edge. And again, did you see this play right here? Russell Maryland missing a sack, but that's what we were able to do to them all game long.
And don't forget, it was Jimmy Johnson's innovation. One of the first things he brought to the NFL was these rotating linemen. Really, not many people were rotating linemen situationally until Jimmy came into the NFL. And once he had the roster that he wanted, didn't happen in '89, as Michael can attest. But once he had the roster that he wanted, then he was rotating defensive linemen in ways that no other team was doing.
And Jimmy brought that in from Miami. He did a lot of that at Miami. He wanted those defensive linemen fresh so they can always get to the quarterback. Guys, I'm not seeing the game, guys.
Yeah, I'm not either, Michael. I'm just letting them talk.
Yeah, me too. I want to see the game, though.
Maybe when you get to offense, we can.
Well, they're on offense right now. A lot of people forget that the Cowboys punted early and the Bills blocked a punt. I remember thinking, oh boy, we're going to be here a long time today. But then here they come back, and Eatman flares one out in the flat for Emmitt Smith, and he breaks a tackle. And Michael, we were talking before. I forgot until watching some of this tape how good Emmitt was at sending his hips in one direction and his legs in another direction simultaneously and then switching them.
He was absolutely great, Brad, at hitting balance is what I like to call it. No matter where you go, what you try to do, he balances himself up well and always got the extra yards. But Buffalo came out and did a great job. They were playing cover 2. They had two deep safeties over the top, and they were very, very physical with the wide receivers at the point of attack on the line of scrimmage. And that gave us some serious problems early on because it slowed up our passing game, the timing of it, and allowed some pressure to get back to Troy Aikman.
And we're looking at some of these players, and there's Jay Novacek in motion. Now you're back at your own 15-yard line. There's great protection. And Eatman overthrows you. And, Michael, one thing I remember Troy saying through the years is that he couldn't believe how over-anxious he was at the start of the game. He said he was hyperventilating to start the game.
Yeah, and we all were. And that was on a 7 route that he I wouldn't say he overthrew me. I thought the guy got a little bit too much of me on the jam at the line of scrimmage. I didn't get a clean enough release. And then I kind of broke it off early going over to the sideline because I didn't think I got deep enough. So it was kind of a combination of things going wrong on that play. And honestly, I thought it was just what Troy talked about, us hyperventilating and needing to calm down in this game before we got going.
Now what we just saw was that blocked punt that we talked about. Mike Saxon had it blocked. And usually, if you get a punt blocked that early in the game, I would say probably 80% of the time you're losing the game.
Brad, you saw what happened there, Brad. You saw how Tasker moved over late on that blocked punt. Darryl Johnson checked to the right where Tasker was. By the time he came back left where Tasker had moved over, it was already too late. I think that was Robert Jones who missed the block totally as Tasker went right by him.
Calling Robert Jones out already.
Now, I'm just saying, and that's funny because Robert didn't start the game. Kenny Gant started the game because we wanted more defensive back. I'm just going off memory of the game because I want to see it. I can't see it.
This is what fans for many years have had to do, is they've had to listen to Brad Sham call the game. So that's what you and I are doing right now. Is just going to let Brad and Tony's he's the color guy.
Yeah, and Brad, this was the first sudden change in this game. You know, they get the block punt, and then it's about us going out there and try to keep them out of the end zone. It's a tough task, but you know, we tried to do as much as we could. We needed Thurman Thomas, so we're going to give a heavy dose of Thurman Thomas. But this is an example of sudden change and big plays that already happened early on in the game.
Well, you got Kenny Norton making the play on first down, and you had Russell Maryland making the play on second down. And now they're starting to feel just a little bit of a pressure because it is 3rd down and 3 at the 9, and Kelly has no one to throw to, and there's the first turnover as Haley gets the sack strip, and it looks like James Washington got back. Oh, actually, he didn't get on it. The Bills got on it, but now it's 4th down, and they have lost this first encounter.
Well, and that's the reason why Charles Haley was brought in to do that all year long, and that was just a huge play by Charles. I mean, he was just huge in this game. But you got to remember, it was negated by we were offsides on this play, so maybe that's the reason why he got there quick. But that negated a huge play. It was 3rd and 3. It would have been 4th and 3. They probably would have had to settle for a field goal. Now you got them 1st and down inside the 10.
And by the way, that referee was the late great Red Cashin, a member of the Texas Sports Hall of Fame, a great Texas Aggie, one of the most colorful referees in the history of the league. But here again, Tony, you guys are swarming the ball.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing that we were able to do. We had so much speed, and we felt very confident going the game that we matched up really well against these guys. And, regardless of what happens here, we knew that if we just, fight tough and just try to hold our ground, we could gain some confidence.
2nd and goal. Thurman Thomas got to the goal line. And that's a touchdown, but it took the penalty to give him a fresh set of downs to get him in. So you're saying even though they scored here, you guys are not down?
Yeah, we felt pretty comfortable out there because as a defense, you put your situation where you stop them on 3rd and 3, and then they get the ball back and it's 1st and goal. Right there, guys are still swarming. There was never any quit any place on the field, especially when you have a high percentage of scoring right there in the red zone, especially inside the 10-yard line.
So, Michael, when you guys get the ball back, you're now down a touchdown. Do you remember what you were thinking at that point?
Yeah, you know what, Brad? I was thinking we have to calm down and try to get something going. Buffalo obviously said they wanted to stop the passing game and slow down the game. They figured, hey, if we can make Emmitt Smith beat us, or that we have a chance. They were not going to let Troy Aikman beat them. And interestingly enough, that's exactly what Troy Aikman did. But they wanted to stop the passing game and make us creep the ball all the way down the field with that cover 2 coverage that they were playing. But after we finally started getting some plays, Troy worked on Jay Novacek. Then I remember he finally got that play down the middle of the field on Jay Novacek. Things and another series or 2 started loosening up.
All right, now you're down into Buffalo territory, and it looks like you've got a first down. And Novacek, as usual, everybody else is talking about Michael and Emmett, and sometimes about Darrell and Novacek. What a weapon he was.
He really was, and especially in that game. And I tell you what, we did a lot in that game. From what I remember in that game, since they were playing a lot of cover 2, we wanted to make it very difficult on that defense. So I'm usually the X receiver. That means I play the single receiver side. They had me playing a lot of switch to the Z receiver. Because when you're playing cover 2, if you put your top tight end and a top wide receiver on the same side, that forces the defense to put a linebacker on Jay Novacek, which was almost impossible to stop Jay Novacek with a linebacker. And early on, he really got our offense going.
So now it's 1st and 10 at the Buffalo 40-yard line. And there goes Emmett. And look at that hole. And he's got a first down and a lot of room to run.
Yeah, but did the flag come out on that play?
Well, we haven't seen it yet. What I want to, there it is. Look at you in the memory. Yes, false start.
Right. I lined up. I was we lined up on the slot side. I was supposed to be on the line of scrimmage, and Alvin Harper going in motion. I was off the ball. They'll call that penalty on the late great Mark Tuinei, but really it was me uncovering Mark Tuinei as Alvin Harper went in motion.
All right, now it's 1st and 15. And so a short pass to Darrell Johnston. And you're all still very patient.
But he certainly looks like he's got the biscuits got all of his.
Yeah, and they were making us play patient, Brad. It wasn't anything we wanted to do, But honestly, Brad, I thought that helped us, really, because not having early success, we got a chance to, okay, let's calm down. This is going to be a grind-out game. They wanted to play physical and tough outside. And it helped us started calming down. We got some good hits in early on, and then you caught your second breath. And once we caught our second breath, and that defense was doing what they were doing, it started taking off pretty soon from here.
Hey, Mike, what you guys say in the huddle to kind of slow your heart rate down and just try to keep in composure and just pretty much settle down into the game? What you guys do in the huddle? Did you guys say anything or just
early on? One of the things I kept saying in the huddle was like, guys, come on, we'll get it going. I said the defense is playing great. Defense is playing great, man. We got to join the game. We got to help them now. We'll get it going, but let's everybody slow down. Let's do what we do. Let's get back to doing what we do, because you guys were giving us every opportunity. Even the 7 points they had, they got basically off that blocked field goal or the blocked punt and great field position. So we felt pretty good because we saw what you guys were doing on defense.
So here we have just seen that on second down and third down, Buffalo got a really good rush up the middle, forced a drop and forced Eatman to have to scramble, and so now you have to punt. You got it out to midfield, but this is a key thing about field position, Tony, because there was just enough field left that Mike Saxon could tilt it a little bit, and he got a touchback, but they're back up at their own 20.
Yeah, right here, we knew that they're going to get a heavy dose of Thurman Thomas, and we knew going again we got to stop the run because we felt pretty confident with our platoon and our depth of the defensive line that if Jim Kelly decided to throw the ball, we'd get enough pressure on him.
Now they're trying to screen here. We got another flag.
Yeah. This is right here, the huge rush right here. Again, I mean, when you're in 3rd and 16 and we got that much time to line up and rush the passer, I think this actually was negated. I think this was roughing the passer. They actually called roughing the passer back in 1992 by Leon Lett. So it negated another. We would have got off the field, but here they are, 1st and 10.
Kelly's taking a lot of hits there, though.
Right then, Leon could have pulled up on that play. I felt that Leon just wanted to get his name called at the Super Bowl right there. I was like,
little did he know.
Yeah, little did he know he would remembered forever.
Right. Just to let him know. Because remember, Tony,
right there.
The one thing Jimmy said to us was, hey, these guys are going to start fast. Let's be ready. But if you continue to hit them and continue to harass them, later on in this game, they'll start turning the ball over, and we'll take advantage of them then. And that's exactly how this game went.
And that's exactly what just happened. The pressure, again, forcing the interception by James Washington. And you could just tell, Tony, that Kelly was starting to get rattled a little bit by all of this constant pressure.
Well, yeah, once they got out of that timing offense, we knew if we just got back there, especially in long, situations, and we were able to capitalize. There, the tight end fell down, and J-Dub makes a great interception. And this is where we started to put something together for the offense.
So now, Michael, you're taking over in the Buffalo end. And even though you don't get anything on first down, you guys must have thought, okay, this is what we were waiting for.
Yeah, we knew those turnovers were starting to come. James Washington had just the receiver fell down and they had pressure on Jim Kelly. Jim Kelly put it in the air, and James snatched it out of the air. That's the first thing we said when we came on the field. Like, guys, we got to start helping our defense. You going on that field, and the defense were playing like they're playing. Every time you walk by, you're looking over at Charles and Tony and those guys, and they're like, hey, don't y'all bring y'all butts off this field real fast now. So we knew we had to start helping.
16, and we just saw you make a big catch on 3rd and 16, and that was one of the early big plays for your offense.
A deep end route because they were playing the cover 2 route. Cover 2. I knew I was not going to be able to get the depth because that's usually a 20-yard route. So what I did was once I got inside the cornerback, I went up, but then I rolled in. Instead of going to 18 and squaring in, I rolled in. Troy threw the ball, hit me, got a pretty good hit. And that's right there, Tony, you asked the question. That's when all of the anxieties left right there, I think, for our offense. And we started saying, okay, let's start rolling now.
Yeah, that was a great play. And now they just starting to hand the ball off to Emmitt Smith. And as you mentioned, Michael, this is something that you guys need to settle down, get that first try and move the chains. And this is just an example, offensive line just knocking guys off the ball.
And we can see everybody's got a little piece of it. Nate Newton and Daryl Johnston and John Giesick, the right guard, Stepnoski. It's great to say those names again, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, it is, Brad. And I'm going to tell you something. One thing, when you watch this game, you would notice what a great job that offensive line did on one of the greatest defensive linemen to ever play this game in Bruce Smith. Bruce Smith did. I know he wanted to have a great game. I've talked to him a million times about this game. But that offensive line right there, those guys you just called did a great job on keeping him at bay all game long.
And then we just saw Jay Novacek on a skinny post. And now the game changes because after a penalty on the kickoff, Buffalo's backed up. Fumble, Jimmy Jones, number 97, recovers for a touchdown. Now, both of you tell me, what are you thinking on the sideline now?
I'm thinking I wish I would have been in the game because that may have been me. But Jim, it was a great play by Charles Haley. Now he hits Jim Kelly, causes a fumble. Jimmy Jones is right. Charles Haley hits him, and then the ball falls right in Jimmy Jones' hands. What a tremendous play. And again, this is what we needed. Take advantage of turnovers. But anytime Charles, you see him. I think he's lined up on Ballard, their left tackle, I believe, and. Right, he just runs around him and just gets a square hit, flush hit on Jim Kelly, and Jimmy Jones. God bless Jimmy Jones. I love that guy. Swampy makes a tremendous Super Bowl moment play.
It was a great defensive unit because the ball, Charles hit it, the ball went off, if I remember correctly, Leon Lett's helmet, and then landed right in the arms.
Right in your hands. Look at what I found.
Right in the arms of Jimmy Jones. And I was like, wow, every defensive lineman's getting some action on that play. It was a great play.
Now there's a pressure on the ball after the kickoff, and they're going to try to figure out who's got this ball on the return. And you can see Kenny Gant, number 29, come in, knock the ball loose.
Play. Knocked it off. Knocked it out. Well, that's a great play by the Shark right there.
Who's got the ball again? Right. But the
Buffalo
the
got that
back.
one. Yeah, they got it back. But that was a great play by Kenny Gant. You saw him raise that hand and rake that ball. We worked a lot on that. We worked a lot about it. I told you that Jimmy talked about those turnovers, so everybody was conscious of it going into the game. And offense, defense, and even special teams. And Kenny Gant made a great play right there, even though we didn't get the ball.
How would you know what they worked on special teams?
Because, Jimmy, that's all he talked about. That's all he talked about. Brad, I was sitting in that game, and when those turnovers started happening, I remember looking at Jimmy like he was Gundy or somebody. Like this is what this dude said was happening, man. I couldn't believe it was happening. And I can't tell you how much peace that gives a young team in this place that had never been in that place when you start seeing everything unfolding like your head coach said it would unfold. It gave you a peace about it.
Well, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about Joe Avazano, how important special teams. We were in Joe's special teams meeting before our team meeting an hour before the night before, and there was so much emphasis. You know this, Brad, Nick, and Michael especially. There was so much pay attention to detail, and as you can see, guys like Kenny Gant I mean, they made their name off special teams, and that's just an example in this game of what he used to do.
And the one thing I wish that we could one day have open up and let the world see, and that speech, because Joe gets his speeches, Arizona gets his speeches the night before a game in that special team meeting. His pecs were jumping and he was going, boy. It was a great pregame speech. If we had played that night, we would have scored 100 points right after that meeting.
Now, I want everybody to watch that. That play was made by number 57, Vincent Smith.
Yeah.
He's a linebacker that a lot of Cowboy fans don't remember. Everything that happens on the rest of this goal line stand happens because Vincent Smith made that play on second down.
And this is very pivotal for us, and especially for them. And right here, this play right here, I mean, to be able to just stack up right there on the 1 or 2 yard line and just be that rigid. And as you mentioned, Brad, I mean, so many get playmakers, and it just takes a will to bust their will. And I think right here is when we thought, okay, you know, they're getting guys hurt. I mean, we can deflate their soul on this possession.
Because they'd had that long play to Andre Reed. They were feeling pretty good about themselves. First and goal inside the 10. Vincent Smith made the play on second down. You just saw Kenny Norton make the stop on third down, and they're going to go for it on fourth down and goal in a tie game.
An interception.
And then an interception. Thomas Everett in the end zone. Michael, is this possession where the game really formally changed?
Let me tell you something. I thought this said the game was over, really, for me. That play Ken Norton made, it's like Tony was talking about. You saw air leave that team. Because, you know, that's just a fight right there. That's a will. That's not a skill situation right there. On the goal line, Kenny Davis and Kenny Norton. That was a will play, not a skill play. All skill aside is who wants it more. And right there, I thought Kenny Norton's told Buffalo team, Buffalo fan base, we are not losing this Super Bowl the way he stopped Kenny Davis right in that hole on that goal line. And then, of course, Jim tried to roll out, and they made a great interception. Thomas Everett made the interception in the end zone.
So now you're moving out with a 14-7 lead, and the offense has the ball back. Now Novacek's got himself into a little groove.
Yeah, and this is where Novacek started really laying down the law. And because Novacek was doing what he did later on, coming back in later on in the second quarter, they had to go away from the cover two. Because we kept lining me up on the same side as Novacek, then they put a linebacker on Novacek, and he was hurting them pretty good with some short passes. Then they had to go away from the cover two, which said, Michael gives you a chance to start playing in this game. And that's what started happening.
And you see Godfrey Miles, the Cowboys linebacker who had to leave with a knee injury. And that is athletic trainer Jim Maurer on the left of your screen. He's still the Cowboys' head athletic trainer, one of the best in the league. Now they're at their own 36-yard line. Look at the protection for Eatman. And this was when Michael Troy Eatman was still a nifty, nimble athlete running for first downs.
Yeah, he could run, man. And I don't know why everybody always thought Troy could not run. Troy did not necessarily want to run, but when he had to, he could start picking them up and putting them down. As long as it was a straight ahead run, he could do it. Just don't ask him to put much wiggle in it. Just go straight ahead.
He saw a little speed right there.
And look at Emmitt Smith. See Emmitt Smith with that block on Cornelius Bennett.
Was that not a great block, Brad? That's one of the things I think that Emmitt didn't get enough credit for. You know, and get this, he didn't take out his knees, which most guys don't like you taking. He put his body right about navel high, right into Cornelius Bennett, and all he has to do is slow him down, and he slowed him down perfectly. It was a great block by Emmitt.
And at this point, you can see the statistics. Emmitt's still at 16 yards on 8 carries, but he's making other little contributions. And Emmitt taught us this. Don't judge a great running back by his statistics late first, early second quarter.
I think it's about to change here, Brad.
Yeah, I think you're right.
You're getting close to maybe some play-by-play, Brad. I'd like to hear you kind of bring it
Eatman
back.
rolling to his right, throws it out on a pass intended for Irvin on the right sideline, but that ball is apparently picked off.
No, it wasn't intercepted. It was almost intercepted. Almost intercepted. We ran a pivot five. Those guys, when they started playing off, they started sitting at 15 to 17. I actually should have pushed him a little deeper. The timing of that was off because the DB was sitting, the cornerback, I think it was Williams, he was sitting at about 14 yards, and I should get 16 to 17 yards on that route. Troy threw it a little early. It went through his arms, in my arm, and hit the ground, and then he picked it up, tried to act like it was an interception, but it was an incomplete pass.
On third down, the pass to Novacek goes to the right sideline. And did they get the first down? Eatman doesn't look too pleased. We're at the mercy of the television camera. And you can see Novacek battling for the sticks, and they wrestled him out of bounds. So Mike Saxon is going to come on to punt.
I think it's just amazing to show how valuable Jay Novacek, what type of great tight end he was. I mean, the guy was a tremendous player, man.
And I'm betting that right here, if you look at those guys in the interior, 48, 55, remember what Michael said earlier, I think they've got the containment figured out.
Yeah.
So now you got a fair catch at the 15-yard line. And the defense gets a chance to come back.
That was a nervous punt, though, now, Brad, because I remember thinking, okay, now, somebody put a hand on Tasker. We can't afford here getting any more punt blocks because that'll put them back in the game as we felt. I thought we felt pretty good about trying to get some breathing room in this game right here.
Tony, what was the difference between Thurman and Kenneth Davis?
You know, Thurman had similarities like Emmett. He could jump cut, and he could move around, and it's kind of hard to get a shot on him. Kenneth Davis was more of a straightforward runner, so totally different styles. I mean, he could make a yard loss into a 2-yard gain, so that was a difference. And when something like that happens as a defense, it's not that you just kind of rest a little bit and just kind of relax. I think you just really pin your ears back and it's like, okay, we got someone back there that's not the biggest threat as Thurman Thomas, and just take advantage of what they don't have.
They're in a good position at 2nd down and 3 at their own 33, and Kelly is under pressure, and his pass is blocked, and it'll be 3rd down and 3, and Jim Kelly is hurt right there. That's going to be the end of Jim Kelly for the day. So Frank
is that
Wright,
the dive? I can't see it, but that's the dive. Kenny Norton diving over the top and pulling on right.
Well, then at this point right now, we just felt like the blood was in the water. I mean, it was like a frenzy. You know, what,
and
two
remember,
of the best players on offense were out.
The score's only 14-7.
Right. But Brad, those turnovers were coming now. Those situations, we were getting to them now. Everything that Coach Johnson has talked about, even though the score was 14-7, the confidence in the piece didn't come from the score. It came from the revelation that Jimmy Johnson had given us by telling us how this thing was going to play out. And this thing was playing out exactly like that. I remember being on the sideline saying to Alvin Harper, man, Coach said this was going to happen, man. Now we're getting the ball, man, and Jim Kelly's going out of the game. And one other thing I remember, when Frank Wright came in the game, I remember saying, oh, God, I think I'd rather keep Jim Kelly in, because I had watched Frank Wright come back on Miami when he was with Maryland. I had watched Frank Wright come back on Houston in that same year when in that playoff game. And now all of my concerns went back, we can't let him have one of those story comebacks on this stage. All of his comebacks are done. He cannot pull it off here.
Well, they're 2nd and 8 at the Cowboys 20. And a little misdirection play to Williams. And they're close for the first down there at the 12-yard line.
Yeah, you know what? To your point, and Thurman comes back in the game here. Is that, you know, Michael, we didn't relax. We knew that Frank Reich could get the job done. We just felt like that we had a better chance because our defense is so hot. We were getting so much pressure and playing upfield beyond their line of scrimmage.
But remember in the moment now, here you see Thurman Thomas surging down. It's 14-7, but this is a team that has been to now 3 Super Bowls in a row. They're pretty confident too. 2nd down, and Reich's pass is broken up by Larry Brown in the end zone.
But you know what, Brad? I don't think we ever thought about that, Michael. I mean,
we did not. I thought they were going to be under pressure. I thought right now, this team has to start feeling the pressure. Oh, man, we cannot lose 3 in a row. And that's exactly where my head was. And I was thinking, let's put something on them, man. If we can get this ball back and go get a score in, they will start really starting to worry about this game and the way it's unfolding.
So it's 3rd down and 4 at the Dallas 6. And Reich is under center. There's the blitz coming, and you're offside. Haley is offside.
You know, Michael, I think the pressure, nobody felt it more than Thurman. He fumbled against the Redskins a couple times. He fumbled in this game. He fumbled the next year. It just seemed like he was the one that felt the pressure more than anyone.
And he had under 20 yards in the Super Bowl the previous year. And he was not getting any running room in this Super Bowl. So I certainly agree with you. I know he felt the pressure and he wanted to perform well in this Super Bowl.
Right.
Tony,
they say Charles Haley couldn't play the run. You just saw that OT counter right there. He gets underneath the block and makes a play. Charles didn't like playing the run, but if he had to, he would play it well.
But the secondary is also really involved in playing the run, and they have to settle for a field goal, and so it's 14-10.
Well, at this point, we thought there's no way they're going to score again. They tested us all, you know, on the goal line and certain situations, and our confidence was just so great, and we just felt like we're bulletproof at this point on the defensive side of the ball.
Out of an eye right, says he did so many times. Aikman looks to his right, now back to his left, checks it down to Emmitt Smith, and there's a nice chunk of yardage.
Emmitt was so important with catching balls, just catching short passes. If you were going to put those cornerbacks up on the wide receivers, once we get that release, the flat is wide open. If you can get the ball to Emmitt early, he can make something happen.
Michael, I'm really impressed because I've watched this game several times, but you're not seeing it right now. But you can remember a lot of these plays.
I remember the plays. I remember the plays. It's the Super Bowl. Hey, listen. But I'm not saying I remember everything, but you don't get a Super Bowls after starting 1-15 and 3-13. A lot of people go through a career without seeing a Super Bowl, and this was our first. Everybody always talk about how great it is. Oh, the second one was great, and the third one was great, and they are truly great, but nothing is like that first one, buddy. I can close my eyes, and I see this game right here, and I will do that for the rest of my life.
First down at the 42. Look at the protection. 2-A with a block. Ball nonetheless tipped at the line of scrimmage. Michael, they had Darryl Talley, Bruce Smith, Cornelius Bennett. They had some great players on their defense.
Yeah, early on it gave us some fits too because they were so fast. They were playing so fast. We couldn't get the timing and the rhythm of that offense, man, and they were coming off that ball. And you know, I only thought when I think about the hyperventilating, I only think about the skill set players. But Brad, I had to think about it for a while because early on they were getting pressure. I said I would imagine that the linemen are going through this too, you know, and I think that's why they had early success. But boy, that offensive line got in gear, and it started being a wrap. Emmitt started running well, and everything started happening.
Yeah, and we just saw a great block by number 88 on about a 20-yard run downfield. Emmett breaks out. There it is, right there on the left side of the screen, 88.
Right.
That's good for another 15 yards on that block by Michael Irvin.
And they said
I ran to the huddle and told Emmett about that. I said, "You see that block? You see that block?" He said, "Don't expect credit for what you're supposed to be doing." You know what I'm saying? Because I've gone to him during a game before.
That's why Michael was there. There's that skinny post, and Michael Irvin now has got a Super Bowl touchdown. What'd that feel like?
Man, and let me tell you something. I remember going back to Troy. I said, "Troy, they're playing off and they're playing way inside because he's trying to protect the inside." Troy said, "Okay, if I call a bang 8, will you be able to get inside?" I said, "Call it." I lined up about a yard outside the numbers because I'm usually lining up on the top of the numbers. So I lined up a yard outside the numbers just to pull him out a little bit, and I worked my way down inside and cut right across his face. And all I could think about, Brad, was everybody that knocked on that door and told my mammy I wasn't going to be nothing just saw me for a touchdown in the Super Bowl. That was the most incredible moment for me in my life. I said, now. You know.
All right, now the Bills are feeling a little pressure now because now they've got to score points, and this defense is now on fire. Now it's swarming everywhere.
Yeah, now they got to go under 2 minutes, and it's just a mismatch. I mean, Ken Hull, I forgot to mention, he went out first. I think or didn't play the game. They're starting offensive center, a Pro Bowler. So they were without a lot of different players. Jim Kelly, their starting quarterback, and we just, as I mentioned earlier, Brad, and Michael, and Nick, the blood was in the water, and it's like, okay, let's just go make some plays. Let's go make some memories. And you can see right here, we were running all over the ball, and someone was trying to be part of something big.
Leon Lett is going to be remembered, obviously, for his fumble, but he had 2 forced fumbles, and that was one of them.
This one right here, right.
He had a great game forming before that.
A great game.
Nick, I was just thinking there's a whole generation of Cowboy fans who came along after the middle 90s and didn't see what a player Leon Lett was.
Right.
Yeah, he was.
They've seen Michael Irvin make plays like this one.
Yeah.
This is my favorite. Eatman, Irvin using the big body at the 3, turns and bangs it in.
Let's break that play down now. Remember, I just told you the first touchdown I got, the guy went so far inside. And we got the ball back. I'm in Coach Hack's face. I'm in Troy's face. I'm like, he was so far inside. They're going to go far inside. In this position of the field, they were playing off and they were playing so far inside. Troy said, "Can we run a post corner?" I said, "Absolutely. We'll get another touchdown right now if you run it." So he calls that play. I'm supposed to go 2 steps to the post before I break back to the corner. I get anxious because he's so far inside. I go 1 step. Troy throws it. Since I'm out early, I said, "Oh my God, he's going to intercept this and go 100 yards." So I really kicked my foot to kick him in the head. I was going, "You can't get that ball," whatever. I kicked my leg up to hold him off. The ball got it. I caught the ball, and since I was trying to really kick him, he kicked me. He hit my leg after I caught the ball, spin me around, so I was able to just dive into the end zone after that. It looked like it was a design play, but boy, I was worried. I said, "Oh my God, if I had let him intercept that ball, Troy would have been so upset with me." So I'm just happy it worked out.
What a great throw. Catch.
Yeah. 28-10 now, and look at the white shirts swarming as you're getting close to halftime.
Now, see, I'm going to point that out right there. I was trying to get a big play. I was trying to get my name called out. In the Super Bowl, Mike's already got 2 touchdowns, okay? So I'm out here just trying to make a play. But right here, again, they run a draw play inside. Kenneth Davis slips down, trip him up, and get a tackle right there. Got my name called in the Super Bowl.
And all I can think about now, even about those 2 touchdowns right there, with the way the league is now and all the passing that they do, I said, man, they're pretty much, they can break every passing record that you have. but they'll never get that one. 2 offensive touchdowns in 18 seconds. Nobody in the Super Bowl will ever break that record right there.
And there's Larry Brown with his second interception and the 5th turnover of the game.
A little foreshadowing, Larry Brown's going to find a bigger moment later in another Super Bowl. But, you know, people forget that James Washington in the next year had big plays, but he had an interception in this one, and Larry Brown had an interception as well. So those 2 guys right there, Ken Norton as well, those defensive guys just found the football in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and you forget, Phil, that, you know, Thomas Everett had two interceptions.
Thomas Everett. Can't forget that, yeah.
But when you go back and watch this game, as we're watching the offense now, Michael, it's amazing how many turnovers and how many big plays were part of the story in this route.
Yeah, and Tony, listen, that's the one thing as people revisit our history, the history of that dynasty, you know, and when people talk about the triplets, that defense was insane that we had. It was insane. And that defense we had right there was right at the top of free agency, and everybody started coming to pluck guys off that defense. Had we been able to keep all those guys intact for quite a while, there's no telling what we could have done, because those guys not only were great at what they did, they loved playing together. It was a perfect mixture of crazy and skill, will, all together that made a perfect casserole on that defense.
Buffalo Bills, and we're starting the second half now. Look at the stats. The turnovers are 5-0. The yardage is not that great. Passing yards are close.
Well, now we're coming out and thinking like, you know, hey guys, it's here now. This is our game. This is our game to lose. All we have to do is continue to do what we do. We've settled in, and now we can go play our offense. And you'll see in the second half, we control the ball with the run game, but then Troy makes plays when we have to make plays. We got back to playing our offense.
All right, guys, we've moved into the third quarter a little bit, almost the end of the third. The Cowboys have got a field goal. 31-10 is the score. Buffalo's got the ball on the move. And, Tony, I'll start with you. You guys are on defense. Got a 21-point lead. You still feeling pretty confident?
We're feeling confident. We feel like that we still got some more business to take care of. I mean, it's great to have momentum. As we've watched the game, it's all predicated off turnovers, and we still feel like we got some work to do. So we weren't overconfident. We just wanted to try to finish this game and just make sure we ended where we didn't leave anything on the field, and we were continue to making big plays and really putting as much pressure on them as we did the whole game long.
Michael, you guys just got a field goal in the third quarter. Kept the momentum going a little bit. What's the confidence like for you guys on offense there?
Right here, and guys, I remember thinking, okay, even if we don't go and score touchdowns, which we want to do every drive, getting field goals can ensure us something here. All we wanted to do was make drives to at least take some time off the clock, give our defense some time to rest because they had been playing great. And if we can convert even field goals from here on out throughout the game with the way that defense is playing, we should leave as the Super Bowl champions. That was the thought. So even when in the huddle, we were thinking, hey, let's hold on to the ball. No sudden changes, no turnovers to give them some easy fields or easy field position, easy touchdown, and we should be okay in this game with the way that defense was playing.
And also to answer your question too, Nick, is we had Jimmy Johnson on the sideline was not going to let us rest on our laurels. I mean, he was going to keep grinding and grinding. You guys haven't done anything yet, so just continue to keep playing at this level.
Yeah, he reminds you that Buffalo has an ability to come back on anybody.
Right.
It's a quick strike team. Guys, we got to keep the pressure on. And one thing Jimmy would always say, Tony, you remember when he would say, hey, you know, when things aren't going right, we got to focus. But when they are going right, we got to kill an ant with a sledgehammer. And he was basically in, let's kill this ant with the sledgehammer mode.
Tony, do you remember what happened on the coverage there on that long pass, that touchdown pass for Buffalo at the end of the third quarter?
I think I thought my recollection. I think we were sending a bunch of guys. I think we really just kind of let them get in the back end. But again, there's an example of us trying to make plays, and we're trying to make the big play and put pressure on the quarterback. And he's able to get underneath get in the back end of our secondary. We did not want that to happen, but considering we had a lead, Brad, I guess it didn't sting as much.
Yeah, and that was Don Beebe's first reception. Of course, up to that game, if I remember correctly, because of course I'm counting, and Andre Reed was having a great game. He had like 140 yards, right? And I'm over there counting like, man, I got to catch Andre Reed and all of that stuff. So I knew that it was Don Beebe's first catch. It was a 40-yard touchdown where the quarterback just kind of scrambled out, and Don Beebe came open, went down on one knee and caught the ball in the end zone.
Brad, when did the Cowboys get Steve Young? I mean, I see number 8 here running up the middle. I mean, this is one of the best runs I've seen him in a long time.
Well, I had the pleasure of watching him in the Cotton Bowl the year when the draft followed that. And
that wasn't pleasurable.
Michael, well, I didn't care, so it was fine. But Michael alluded to it before, but people really forget, before he started getting back injuries, he was really accurate on the run, and he could throw running to either side, and he was not afraid to get outside the pocket and to scramble and to run. Now, once he started getting some back injuries, that's when he really didn't want to have any part of that. But he was a much better athlete than people remembered early in his career.
Hey, Mike,
Troy was very careful right there on that play.
Against Miami, right?
That's right.
Troy was killing us when he was playing Oklahoma. But on that play also, when he went up the middle, Troy, you could tell he had some possible chances of throwing that football. And you talk about it, guys, he was being very careful. He didn't want to make any mistakes, didn't want to make any bad decisions and give them the short field. He pumped the ball a couple times, and then the middle opened up, and he just said, let me take this safe run, and he made a great run.
Yeah, and he wasn't looking for a place to lie down. He got his first down.
Right. He put it on the line. If ever there's a time to put it on the line.
What's amazing is, he's the MVP of this game, and I think coming up maybe this drive or the next drive, his touchdown to Harper. But he never did have his feet set. I think he slipped on the touchdown pass. Like when he was on his back in his back step, he kept slipping throughout that whole game.
He slipped on the pump. He slipped twice. He slipped on that second touchdown to me right before the half.
Right.
He slipped, and then he came back and he slipped on the pump to Irvin. Had to redirect his feet, and he hit Irvin wide open. But a number of us were slipping in that game. It was a lot of slips. I remember slipping on an out route when Troy scrambled to his right, and I remember trying to stop, and I did the split. And Troy went and ran and got a few yards. But yes, it was a number of us slipping in that game.
Well, remember, I said at the very beginning that the first thing that I remember, look at Emmett making yardage down the sideline. The first thing that I remembered and noticed about the day was how dewy the grass was.
Right.
And it really never got hot enough. It warmed up, but it never really got hot enough to soak it all up. And it's not a surprise that it would be a little dewy throughout the game.
Yeah, and Brad, what you just talked about, Emmett, right here, and this is the confidence that I had in our football team. And I would always say to people, listen, you can say a lot of things, but for me, Emmett was the greatest finisher. One of the greatest finishers this game has ever seen. Because if you can get a lead and Emmett, you give Emmett that ball behind that offensive line, oh my God, you talking about someone that can finish. He never loses yards. He's always falling forward 2, 3, 4 yards. So that gives you two things. That gives you positive yardage, and you'll never go broke putting something in the bank. And it gives you clock management, which he was absolutely the best at.
Yeah, and the more the game got along, as long as you had a lead, the more he wanted the ball too.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
So now here's Frank Reich. He's just got to keep trying to climb out of this hole. Time is now a factor for him. He's 2 touchdowns behind. Tony, you guys are rushing the passer the way you have the entire game.
interception. He gives it to Smith. Gambles for
All right,
the thing that made that defense so great, Brad, was it was so many of those guys, as we talked about early on with that defensive line, and they competed to get to that quarterback. It was, I mean, I used to love to hear those guys talk about defensive line play. Charles Haley would always come up and ask, "How many points you need, Michael? How many can you give us?" I said, we can give you 28 points. He said, "We won't need that many, but if you can give them, that's great." You know what I'm saying? That's great, because they don't plan on giving up that many points. You know, it was always great to see those guys go after.
Here's the other thing that's happening now, Michael. 11 minutes left, you've got the ball back, and you can begin to see the front seven of Buffalo. Once Emmett's got that, so look at Stepnoski's got a great block too, and now he's got his guy on the ground. Now they're wearing out. They really don't
wait.
They don't want it anymore.
And that's why when you talked about it earlier, Jimmy loves shifting in defensive linemen. Jimmy realized that in college, that later on, especially if you get a big defensive line and you don't have that rotation, that later on that line just starts laying on you, and it's 4 yards here, 5 yards here, rushing. So what he did was bring it to the Dallas Cowboys. Late in that game, because that was a fast, quick offensive line, defensive line for Buffalo. Wasn't the biggest, but boy, late in that game, those guys just started to lean on Buffalo, and Emmett just came to life.
You know, Mike.
You just saw Aikman slip. There's the touchdown pass to Alvin Harper, and just what Michael described earlier, you could see Aikman's foot slip as he tried to get at the top of his drop and set his feet.
Yeah, Michael, was that the greatest dunk in Super Bowl history?
Well, and Alvin hadn't caught a ball up to that point, you know. So this is the Super Bowl, and Alvin hadn't caught a ball. And I remember thinking to myself, oh, my God, when they called the play, he called a 7-pump. I said, God almighty, I hope he gets this, because this will shut him up. You know what I mean? We were winning, but this would give him something. And he was wide open. And I think the slip is what helped him get wide open, because people were reading Troy slipped, they bit up. He put the ball up in the air. Alvin was wide open, got the ball, then went running up and put that left-hand dunk on the goalpost, man. I was so happy for him. And right there, to me, I said, this is over. This game is won. We are going to be Super Bowl champions.
And then your defense they're not done getting takeaways. Thomas Everett's going to get you another one here. They got 2 or 3 more left in them.
Yeah, and taking away from Frank Wright now, and that was a great play by the defense, man. They kept swarming. I mean, that was a great thing, Brad. And I talked about this earlier. They won't put them up there with those great defenses, you know, as we talk about in defenses in history. Those 85 Bears, there's 2,000 Ravens, steel curtains and everything. But that defense right there of Super Bowl XXVII, I will stack up against anybody. I mean anybody that ever played in the NFL. It was fast. It was quick. It was mean. It was quick, fast at the linebacker position. They knew how to read. It was an incredible defense. It was the #1 defense, and none of those guys made the Pro Bowl.
And then look at Emmitt Smith. And Michael, you talked about him as a finisher. Before, look at him break through. You've got him worn down, and he just explodes into the end zone.
That's when he's at his best. He's so balanced. And so when you hit him, even if you get off a block and get a hit on him, he's so balanced. He uses that hit to rebalance him, and he goes and get another few more yards, and that it demoralizes your defense. And as I said earlier, it starts wilting away the will of your defense, and that's what you'll start witnessing here late in this fourth quarter.
And I'm glad we got a chance to see a couple of up-close shots there of Eric Williams, because you can talk about him, Michael. I'm 100% convinced if he hadn't been in that traffic accident a few years later, he would absolutely be in the Hall of Fame.
No doubt, Brad. I say to people all the time, because they ask a lot, since I'm still in TV, if you would take one player to start your team, who would it be? And God Almighty, everybody always pick a quarterback, and because we all understand the importance of that position. But I say, you give me one player to start my team, I'm going to start with Eric Williams. You get, because Eric Williams set the tone for that offensive line, and Eric Williams, he gave us the peace when he came in and said, "I got Reggie White. You can start worrying about him." We said, okay, now we can start winning some football games because somebody had to get Reggie White. And that fellow you just mentioned, he took care of Reggie White for us. God bless Reggie White's soul.
You know what I loved about this game? Not only the 2 defensive touchdowns, but you couldn't script it any better. You got 7 touchdowns, 2 on defense, and then everybody scores. Michael gets 2, Harper gets 1, Novacek gets 1, Emmett gets 1. I mean, it was just spread out so perfectly. It was the ideal way to win a game, with offense and defense.
And then what I heard you say was Michael gets 2.
Yeah, Michael gets 2.
He said it the right way, and it was the pecking order. It was the pecking order, and it was the right order. That's why I said it earlier. I was so happy to see Alvin get involved. Jay had made some great contributions, even though they were short passes. Jay was the key cog in it all because he brought them out of that cover 2, which allowed us to start throwing the ball because he was eating down the linebackers and eating up the middle of the football field. But everybody contributed to that victory. So when we walked in that locker room, it really felt real good.
Here's one of those defensive touchdowns. I don't know if I'm ahead of you guys, but there's
Ken Norton. Yep.
What a great game he played. I mean, he not only the goal line stand and the touchdown, but he also knocked out Jim Kelly. I mean, he was the knockout blow the whole game.
Yeah, and I almost tried to knock him out right there. But you talking about so many great guys on that defense in our team. And Michael mentioned our offensive line. Offensive line. The reason why our defensive line was so, and our defense is good, is our offensive line was so great to work against those guys every day where you actually, it's a physical beating back in our area. But, Tim Norton Jr., not only that, the dude could ball, but the dude could eat. And I don't remember if I don't know if you remember this. This is Michael. I've never seen a guy eat so much chicken the night before. We're talking 4 or 5 grown chickens. And I'm like, and I'm sitting, and I'm enamored. I'm sitting next to him in our defensive meeting the night before. But he was he made a good case for MVP. Obviously, they're going to give it to an offensive player, give it to Troy Eatman. But Ken Norton, to me, there were so many, not underrated, but our defense wasn't the glamorous. We're the #1 defense in the league that year.
And nobody made the Pro Bowl that year.
No one made the Pro Bowl. And
which blew my mind.
We had the playmakers on offense, but when he made that play and just jarred and run into the end zone, I don't think there was anybody on that team who's more happier for him than Ken Norton. The dude was just a baller, tremendous dude, and just part of that's what made this whole team and that defense and just collectively guys that just really didn't care, Michael. Look, Michael can score 2 touchdowns, and I got to disagree with you. I think you really wanted that Alvin Harper touchdown pass. Don't kid yourself, Mike. But
I wanted Harper to get in there. I wanted him to get in there. But Tony, you know what I thought about when I saw Ken make that play, and I thought the same thing too, because I got a couple touchdowns. Maybe I got a shot at MVP, but I knew they would give it to the quarterback because Troy had an incredible game. Troy had an incredible week of practice. I don't think we missed a ball in practice. And then it came over and carried over into the game. But I remember late in that game thinking, man, these UCLA boys are killing it out here. Yeah. Troy, Ken Norton. I was like, they're used to playing on this field. That's why they're killing it out here. And it would have been nice to see them get co-MVPs since both were from UCLA.
Hey, James Washington had an interception.
Absolutely. Jay Washington played well, too. He played very well, made some great plays in that game to give us some big turns, the great interception when the guy slipped, but also made some great plays all game long.
So you and Ken Norton were in the same draft class, obviously, Landry's last class. Did y'all have kind of maybe a different kind of connection just because you guys were the Landry last of Landry's holdovers?
You know, the last of Landry's holdover is how everybody described us. We're the last draft picks, and we were certainly proud to be that. And we talked about that all the time. Ken Norton and I, you know, we're great friends to this day, and we talk about it. You know, I was speaking at his 50th birthday party a couple years ago, and I didn't mind, Ken didn't mind me saying it. They said everybody will talk about Jimmy and Jerry, they'll argue about who turned this thing around, but Ken would tell you, Ken said it was really Michael and me. We started this thing in '88 when we got drafted in the first and second round. That's what turned this thing around. So yeah, that's one of my great friends right there, man. I'm so proud of Ken. And I remember after speaking at his birthday, and all of those guys that he had coached came up to me and was telling me, I mean, the Bruce Irvins, the Khalil Macks, telling me about the impact that Ken Norton had on their life. I talked to Ken Norton after, and I'll share something with you guys. Soon after that meeting, I went right to New York and met with Commissioner Goodell. And I told Commissioner, I said, Commissioner, I want out of my TV contract because I wanted to get into coaching. I said, not often in life do we get a chance to see the impact we have on people. I said, usually we go on to eternity and we're looking back in the time and say, oh, I didn't know I meant that. After that birthday party of Ken, I was so touched by the impact and what those guys had said. I was like, man, I should be coaching. I went to Goodell. We had a sit-down meeting. I said, I want out. I want to go back coaching. He said, Michael, I understand what you're saying, but you're right where we're going to keep you right now doing TV. And he made me stay right there. But I really, from Ken Norton, just seeing what he had done, man, I really wanted to go. And I just wanted to get that before I leave time and go to eternity. What an incredible job he has made and great, incredible career he has made after football.
Assistant coaches put in?
Yes, he did tell me that. He did, Fred.
You know, there's another 88. Drew Pearson, after he was in an auto accident and had to quit because he had his spleen torn, and he coached for a year for Tom Landry, and then Drew told me after that, he said, those coaches, I thought we put in a lot of hours. Those coaches are there all day long, and they get paid nothing. He said, I'm not doing this. I am not doing this assistant coaching. No.
Yeah, that would have been the difficult part, Brad, right there. You're right about that.
And to that,
you'd have barely lasted a year.
And what those coaches say about you, the player, is totally different, because I remember Bill Bates, Jack Del Rio, hired him in Jacksonville.
Yeah.
It's like he went in the meeting room, he's like, Tony, you don't want to know what they say about the players, so.
Now, those were great times, man. What great times.
Yeah, I mean, and you go back and watch this game, guys, and you know we just got, I believe it's Leon Lett got a strip fumble, and you know we got the ball back. It's just amazing, and I think Brad, you put it very eloquently, as you always do. We're watching this and thinking, man, you know what? When I go back, 20-something years later, and you watch this game, we're pretty damn good. And that's what Brad said. You said, you know what? Sometimes you got to just tell yourself, you know what? We're pretty damn good. And you really don't understand it until you get removed from it and actually watch how dominating Super Bowl XXVII was.
Michael, I told Tony this the other day. I remember the game in '92 against the Los Angeles Raiders at the Coliseum. And the Coliseum stands are full of about 75% Cowboy fans. Cowboys win the game. This season's going along like a dream. We're walking up the ramp from the locker room to go to the bus, and I'm walking with Tony Wise, the great offensive line coach. And Tony Wise is shaking his head, and he said, I don't know what the hell is going on. And I said, Tony, at some point you might just have to admit that you're pretty good.
I remember that game, too. I remember running Lott in that game. Oh, my God. I remember seeing it.
I bet you
was that Lott that flew over the top and hit Emmett. Emmett stumbled at about the 4-yard line, regathered, and went right in the end zone. I was like, oh, my God. And all I remember is Ronnie Lott was in that game, because that was the game that I really learned that courage does not mean the absence of fear. It means an ability to overcome your fear. And everybody kept saying, Michael's fearless. I kept saying, nobody's fearless. That's Ronnie Lott right there. It's okay to have fear. You just got to have courage with it.
You know, you talked about all you remembered from that game. There's a lot of people out here that all they remember from this game, we've gone through 90% of it so far, but all they remember is a play that's coming up here in just a little bit with Leon Lett. Is that a shame, or is that just kind of the way that it is? And just because it's one of those, when you have so many moments, you know, something like that's going to stick out.
Well, you know what I thought? Yeah, and it is. And what would have been great, that would have set the record in scoring points in a Super Bowl. You know, we had 52. That would have given us 59 if he goes and score those 7 points. That would have set the record. And I remember Leon came over to the sideline after that play, and he looked at me. He said, "It's your fault." What do you mean that's my fault? I wasn't even on the football field. He said, "I was trying to do that thing you do where you hold the ball out and bring it across late." And he said, and BB scripted, he said, "That's your fault. I should have just held on to that ball." But because we were winning by such a wide margin, and it was the Super Bowl, you know, we were able to have fun with it. It was much different than it was from that Thanksgiving Day game where we had lost the game. And Leon came in that locker room. He was feeling down and feeling hurt. And Coach Johnson had already said to him, he said, "I'm not going to cut you. Don't worry about it." And then once he said that, I remember saying to Leon, I said, "Cat," I said, "I know you feel bad, man, but let's just look at it this way." I said, "Every Thanksgiving, people will eat on you. They will always play this for the rest of your life and beyond."
But this one too. Here he goes, and there he goes doing the Michael Irvin, and there's BB stripping it out of his hands.
That's the play. Oh my God, man!
And it's just all you can think about unlike Leon.
Right, and oh my God, you thought, not the Leon. No way this can happen twice. Not the Big Cat. Not another play that will live in infamy forever. And that's exactly what that play was.
Remembered than forgotten, that's for sure.
I love Bill Bates' story. Bill Bates has a story that after the ice game that they went to the hospital visits, and the little girl wrote him a letter and said, "Don't feel bad about doing that against the Dolphins, because last year in the Super Bowl there was a guy running for a touchdown and he fumbled the ball." She didn't know it was the same guy. I don't know if that's a true story, but Bates
that's
told
a true
it, so.
story. I remember Bill was telling us about it after it. That is a true story. That was so funny, man. It was funny. That was funny.
Did Cat laugh?
Hey, Brad, we were champions. Cat was able to laugh right there. All's well that ends well.
You got to give him credit for not quitting on the play. I think that's only played and quit all day long.
Yeah, I think that's. I think about that, Tony. Every time I see that play, it didn't matter because the game was over. It was a blowout. But no one long remembers what it took inside of Don Beebe to hustle down the field that way in that game. He didn't have to do that.
Hey, Michael. Yeah. You're right, and Brad, you're right about that with Beebe. But what you were just talking about being a coach and putting in the hours and all that, would you have ever thought that Leon Lett, 25 years later, would be a teacher? I think Brad said it in a documentary we did, that he is a teacher of men and players. I think it's one of the best success stories of all time.
And I absolutely agree with you, and I love that Leon went into coaching, and a lot of those guys from that era, from those teams, have moved on and been successful in other areas, and I think that speaks to the kind of success we had together, all of it. And it's one thing that when Jimmy goes into the hall that I wish people would understand the most. And I say when I speak to coaches, I say when you become a coach, it's not just about winning championships. It's about making champions out of everybody on your ship, and because you're the captain of that ship. And Jimmy Johnson knew how to do that. Tony will tell you everything that Jimmy drove in our ears all the time. They are great tools and inspirational moments to help you on a football field. but all of them are applicable off the football field and in life, and that's why you see a lot of guys from those teams have great success even beyond the football field because of the way Jimmy Johnson coached and taught us on the football field.
Yeah, and you mentioned Jimmy Johnson. They just showed him on the sidelines, and he's just you can't convince him he's about to win the Super Bowl. He's still in the coaching moment. He's still grinding, and you mentioned it, Michael. I mean, there's a lot of teachers out there. There's a lot of people that really can make an impactful and really do things to push you. And and that's the thing about the guys that we play with. That there's so many guys we don't talk about, but like Leon Lett. I mean, the guy's he has aspirations. He's a coach now, but Jimmy was just kind of this unique breed of a guy.
A great guy.
Because I was able to watch him, work different personalities with you, myself, other players, and the way he delegated. But at the end of the day, he was able to mold you into something that you may have not thought you never thought you were, because that was just his way of coaching. And again, just watching, let's get ready to celebrate, and you celebrate this Super Bowl victory.
Why?
He would never let you rest on that.
Why is Eric Williams
right
trying
here,
to steal your hat?
Right here, Em was trying to take my hat, but they had me. They said, "Hey, you got to go hold Jimmy still so we can bring the jug over." Right, so I'm going to hug Coach Johnson to hold him still, and then Big Nate, I think they come over with the jug and everything, man. And I remember telling those guys that story. Jimmy, even in college, we would have Thursday night meetings, and he would make every player in there talk about what they're going to do 10 years from now while we were in college. Then when we got to the pros, Jimmy was like, "What are you doing Sunday? Hey, we don't worry about 10 years from now anymore. We worried about Sunday." And I thought, since I was with him at Miami and then with him in Dallas, I saw that change in Jimmy. I was like, wow, he cared about us as kids and our future, but as professional, he only cared about Sunday. What are you going to do Sunday? That made all the difference for us.
Hey, Brad, I mean, we're seeing the players and what they're thinking, but you've been doing this a long time at this point as well. How memorable was it for you? You have to be professional. You have to keep calling this game, but you have to be excited about this and what you're calling, right?
Getting back, for the Cowboys to be getting back to that place, Brad. You saw it before, and then we went through that long low. But now, Cowboys, and you just said we had a young team. We felt we were going to be there for a while, and history showed that we were. What was it like for you seeing that journey and finally coming back?
I remember my second year on the job was 1977, and the Cowboys went to the Super Bowl and won it. And my third year on the job, they went to the Super Bowl and lost to the Steelers. But I said, okay, now I've got this figured out. You go to training camp, which was then 6 weeks, and you're going to go there in July, and you're going to do the season, and then you're going to play through the playoffs. You're going to go to the Super Bowl. February, you're going to be done, and that's how it is. And it was 14 years before you guys got back there to 92. So when we're on that run in 92, I'm thinking this has been a very long time, and so many steps had been taken that I took none of them for granted because I knew how long it had been, and that's what made 92 and 93 back to back, to say nothing of the run in 94 and going again in 95. That's what made it all so amazing. It was hard to do then. It's really hard to do now because you can't keep the team together. They didn't have free agency, but it was really tremendous. And I think, Michael, to speak to your question, because of the fact that it had been 14 years and I knew that I had already begun to take it for granted long since and found out I was wrong, I was not going to not be in the moment. I was going to try to make the audience, to the extent you can ever make an audience do anything, was going to try to make them appreciate and live every single second of this. You guys were too young to do that. You were just over there having a great time on the sideline. But I, because it had been a drought, I was really trying to make sure that the audience lived and embraced every single moment, because this might not happen again for a very long time.
And I remember that voice, Brad, when you said, Dallas, your Cowboys are Super Bowl champions. That rings in my ear right there.
I remember Dale Hansen saying they're on top of the mountain now, and they might stay there a while. And he was right about that, you know. I mean, he knew it was a young team that was going to stay there. He was,
but Dale, you know, one of the great things about Dale is like Michael, he wears his emotions on his sleeve, and he's if he says something that turns out to be wrong, he knows that most people will have forgotten it by the time it happens. So that was a great thing to say. And he was right. He was absolutely right. But Nick, I didn't know what I was going to say when Emmett became the rushing champion, and I didn't know what I was going to say. That the only thing that I knew was whatever it was, it better not be stupid because it's going to be around a while. And fortunately, that came to me. Dallas, your Cowboys are champions.
Wow.
Yeah.
Final seconds. And I believe both you guys, Michael and Tony, am I right? Both you guys won college national championships?
Yeah, I was very fortunate. I was at Oklahoma and won a national championship. And then, I never thought in my wildest dreams when I was drafted by Atlanta Falcons, a second player picked in the draft, and just the horrible 5 seasons I had there, that I would be playing. I dreamt about a Super Bowl, but much less being in 2 Super Bowls is just amazing. And as you watch us, celebrate 20-something years ago, I mean, it's great to be able to relive this. Obviously, relive it with Brad, relive it to Michael, with Michael and with you, Nick, because you don't sit still long enough when you're young to really appreciate what you've done. And I would have never dreamt of just being able to play in a Super Bowl, and let alone winning back-to-back. I wasn't there for the third one, but just being part of such a great, great dynasty.
And that first Super Bowl, Tony, that first Super Bowl was so great because of the early years, the how hard it was for us in those early years, and finding our groove, and going to 3-13, 1-15, 1-15, 3-13, and then 1-15 in Troy's first year. I sat in that locker room after this Super Bowl until everybody left. I was the last person to leave that locker room, and I didn't want to leave. Because the journey was complete because we've gotten there. We had gotten there and won it. And I thought, wow, man, this is incredible. But there was no doubt in my mind that we were coming back. There was no doubt in my mind. I said, this is where we belong. This is where we will be. We call that home. Super Bowl, no matter where you play it, that was our home. And we wanted to make it back home every year.
All I remember is I didn't stay in the locker room, but I don't think I slept for 2 or 3 days.
But I remember, Michael, I have a memory of, I don't know what game it was, and it's really not important, a road trip late in the year, and things are going great the way they're going, but I remember walking back in the back of the airplane toward the back, and you and Emmett are sitting together, and I leaned over to you and said, you guys need to appreciate what you have the opportunity to do, because it's really hard, and you've got a great chance to do it. And I was trying to tell you about those 14 years. How difficult it was.
Yeah.
Guys, I can give you a different perspective. You guys were there. I was in high school, but you know what? I grew up in the 80s as a Cowboys fan, and what you guys gave to me and the entire Cowboys fan base that day, it was a sense of relief, but also just accomplishment, even as a fan, because a fan, you go through a lot. And so you guys did it on the field, laid it on the line, and Brad, you called the game. But I'm going to tell you, I speak for millions of people out there, that was one of the greatest days, because they had gone through so much, and it was just so exciting that to finally we were back on the mountain as well, even though we didn't play a snap. So I'll thank you guys, and thank you for millions of people out there, because it was such an awesome experience.
And that's how I know that the next time it happens is going to be absolutely amazing, because it's been so long.
Absolutely.
People are going to feel the exact same way, but with a whole different look at it.
Well, guys, today was a journey. It was more of a journey than most people even know. We had a fun time with it. There were some ups and downs, but I'm gonna tell you, hey, let's throw a shout out to Matt Kent running the controls in the
Thanks,
back.
Matt.
He did
Appreciate it, brother.
excellent job. Those guys that go unnoticed all the time, they did such a great job. So let's just throw it back. Michael Irvin, thank you so much for being here, doing it blindly. One of the most greatest accomplishments of your career right here. This is amazing. Thank you so much for joining us, Michael.
Thank you guys, buddy. Thank you guys.
Tony, thank you. Brad, I
Always a
appreciate
pleasure.
you guys joining us.
Pleasure.
All right. Well, that was the first of hopefully many of Cowboys Classics. We'll see you next time.